Your life is so different. It's so unique. This mom of eight with this incredible platform on YouTube, the blog, the podcast. Can you break down your individual revenue stream?
To this day, my podcast is by far the least profitable thing. My blog is the most profitable part of my business by a long shot.
Wow. You'll hear people say like, oh, blogging's dead. Nobody's blogging anymore.
The old way of blogging is way dead.
How many hours a week or a day are you working?
I work 12 hours a week.
Wow, 12 hours a week on your entire business. I think that's kind of the dream though.
If you're listening to this and you're thinking like, how on earth is that possible? It's just been so many years of building and growing and then having a budget to hire a team.
Lisa Bass is a mother of 8 and the creative force behind Farmhouse on Boone, a YouTube channel with over 682,000 subscribers. Through her channel, blog, and podcast, she shares her passion for homesteading, homeschooling, and traditional homemaking. Lisa specializes in sourdough recipes, natural living tips, and creating a cozy home environment that blends traditional skills with modern family life.
What kind of negativity or like backlash have you gotten from your content, if at all?
I get negativity. I got accused of course, like you do, being a YouTuber. Like people are like, you just have kids. I'm like, yes, I literally have children that I have to raise for the next 18 years for a quick million views on YouTube. It makes me shy away from sharing certain kinds of content because I don't want to be accused of that. Like it makes me literally not want to make it.
So then where do you see this all going for you?
I just never would have dreamed it would have grown to this level. Honestly, I think that
So Lisa, your content focuses on homeschooling, homesteading, a very traditional life. How do you balance that with the modern demands of a social media career?
Well, so one thing that I've tried to do is to prioritize which things seem to work best for my life and my business. And so, for example, I don't spend a whole lot of time on Instagram or TikTok or those more fast-paced type of platforms where I feel like you have to be on every single day, and instead curate a couple articles a week for my blog and one long-form video for my YouTube channel. And then I hire a team to do the rest. I think that's been the biggest thing. I think when people focus too much on some of those faster-paced ones, they kind of take over their entire lives.
Yeah, you mean the faster-paced platforms?
Platforms, correct. Yes.
So do you feel that YouTube is more conducive to your type of lifestyle?
Absolutely. Because I can, throughout an entire week, film like one recipe here or one decorating project here, put them together in a video, sit down, edit maybe like 3 hours once a week, but then throughout the week, collect together footage and not feel like I have to share every little thing that we're doing the whole entire time.
Yeah. I mean, you've got 8 kids. You have a very full life. So much of what you do is homesteading, right? So you've got
not right now, actually. We're in a weird life transition, but I still have 8 kids and we still homeschool. So all of that's still going on.
Well, even in my head, it's like, when I think of homesteading, maybe it's not the right definition, but it's like the cooking that you do from scratch.
Okay.
I mean,
that's all happening. Yeah. I'm just not milking a cow right now. But yes, as far as like cooking from scratch and milling grains and making bread, that's still happening every day. Yes.
Yeah. So in my world, I'm like, that's pretty, that's pretty hardcore for 8 kids, right? So it's like, you can't even really like batch cook. You got to like cook like every day from scratch.
Keep going. Yep.
Yeah. So you're doing all of that and you have a very successful social presence, both on YouTube and your blog. And you mentioned having a team. Can you detail what that team looks like and what your responsibilities are versus the team?
So it's really grown a lot in the last year. Instead of just me being the person that everybody reaches out to on the team, excuse me. So before I had, a Pinterest person, somebody who makes my reels and shorts, somebody who helps to like answer comments and questions and DMs, and email customer service because I have some courses and things where there's lots of customer service. So now I have all of those people, but then I also in the last year brought on somebody whose job is to organize all those people, which has been a complete game changer for me. Because even though I had this huge team, I was still spending a ton of time like helping this person get this password, and this person's pictures were the wrong size, and this person put the steps out of, like, there's just a lot that goes on. Yeah. And so now I have someone whose whole job is all of that too. So that's made my life so much easier.
That's so nice. I feel like that's really, really nice. I mean, so when I'm the same way, I have a team And I find that's the only way I'm able to do what I can do, especially
it'd be fully impossible to do what I do. I mean, I have every day that I'm not working on my blog, or on my whole business, somebody's spending a lot of time on it, across several different people, but it's not always me because it can't be any of the people on my team either, because we're all stay-at-home moms, but we all, with our little 2 or 3 hours a day can get all of this done.
Yeah. So can you detail like how many people you have on your team and exactly what they do, and then what you do then?
Okay. So I think about 12 people currently on my team. I have someone that fully manages the podcast. So they reach out to guests, they put together interview outlines, edit, put together the promotional like email copy for it and the reels and the stories to promote the podcast. I have someone who is working on courses. So she helped me to pull together a lot of my content into courses and gave me a list of videos to make for it. So it's kind of just like my assignment was make this video. Then she put together PDFs and the outline and all of the marketing copy. And now she's helping me update some courses. I have a whole blog team. So I have photographers, writers, and then someone who oversees all of those people with like spreadsheets. I'm not a spreadsheet person at all. That's been such a shortcoming for me because I just don't find myself to be that type of person. I'm kind of just like fly by the seat of my pants. So I hired a spreadsheet type of person who has like checklists and dates and deadlines. And she sends out a weekly email to everybody that says, this is what we're posting this week. And this is what you need to do, and hosts like Slack channels. I have somebody for Pinterest. Trying to think here. I have somebody for Instagram and TikTok that takes my YouTube videos and makes them into short form content. Someone that writes emails, and then someone that handles customer service in all my inboxes, because we'll get like somebody needs to switch their credit card or they can't log in. And then we have somebody to manage all the Facebook pages. I feel like I'm talking a lot, but there's a lot of moving parts with it. I think that kind of sums it up.
And so what about video editing?
So that's okay. You asked what I do. That's the thing that I still do, which is kind of funny because you'd think that'd be a relatively easy thing to outsource, but my videos are not as straightforward as like, I'm going to sit down and show you how to do XYZ. I have a vision for them, and I have like a feeling and a vibe I want with them. And I've tried so hard to have an editor, and it never comes out how I need it to for it to like bring people in. Like, I don't know if it's probably just me being particular, but I feel like there's a certain vibe that I can't seem to give to someone else. And so what I do for my business is I answer questions from my main manager. She'll have things that she'll have to bounce off me, so things for approval, things like that. But my main thing that I spend the most time doing is coming up with my YouTube video concept, filming it, and editing it. That's where I spend, I'd say, like 80% of my work hours.
I think that's kind of the dream, though, isn't it? Isn't that what everyone ultimately wants when they be a creator? Is all the rest of that
creative
stuff
part.
Yes, the creative part of it.
Yes, because even with the blog, there's the creative part is coming up with like the recipe idea and testing it. I can do all of that in the context of a YouTube video. Like, hey, I threw this flour in and I did this. And then my team helps make that into a real blog post. And it's interesting because my blog is the most profitable part of my business by a long shot, but I don't have to be in that in order for it to keep being that way. I can still create and I'm in it. So I'm definitely in it, but all of the nuts and bolts and the pieces behind all of that, I don't have to have my hand in all of that as much as I feel like the YouTube video editing needs me more, even though it's not as profitable. It's the place where I don't feel like I can be replaced necessarily.
And it's a place where it sounds like the rest of your content derives.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is. It's like the hub where like I make stuff on video and then we turn that into reels and TikToks and we turn it into blog posts and we refine it. It's not as easy as just turning it into a blog post, but it's something that, like I can sort of share what I'm currently working on creatively. And then I have a team that can help turn that into what it actually needs to be, which is challenging and it's hard to find the right people. But over the years, I've come up with a really great team.
That's amazing. Yeah. How did you find all these people on your team?
It's been a slow, just over the years. Like I've had some people with me. Well, actually just one that's been with me for 6 years. And then I've had like a friend of mine, she quit her business a few years back and she had some really good people. And she's like, do you want them? I'm like, yes, I want them. I definitely want them.
Yeah.
Referrals. I've had people reach out to me a lot. I've had a lot of like viewers reach out and I can't bring them all on, but I have found great people through that. It's just been a symbol. There's no like tried and true place, like some message board or something. There's nothing like that. It's just been slowly over time, somebody will reach out or I'll be referred to somebody. And that's how it's kind of came together.
Well, you say you have people from your audience. Did you ever do like a call to action? Like, hey, I'm looking for someone on my team or no?
No. I just have people that email me. Usually it's stay-at-home moms will email me and say, I'm looking for some side income. And currently, like just if somebody's listening to this, I currently don't have any needs. Because what happens right now is I have such a great team that usually if there's some little project we need, we'll say, hey, who has some extra hours? Do you want to work on this? And so right now it's not something I'm looking for, but we have a whole email tab in my Gmail that's saved with like people who have reached out. And that's where we go when we're looking for somebody new. So that happens because, people will have things come up in life and they'll like quit and do, something else. And so we'll reach back into there and find somebody to fill that spot. And sometimes it's a good fit. Yeah.
Do you have a weekly meeting with the entire team or where do you do most of the communication?
We do a monthly meeting at this point with a Zoom call. Not everybody has to be on it because like the podcast, people don't really need to be on the blog meeting. So usually it'll be like a blog meeting. And then that's pretty much the only meeting we really have to do because it's logistically a lot more challenging. Whereas like the podcast people, there's not very much back and forth with them. Like it's a fairly straightforward job. And then my manager that kind of, oversees everything, she sends out a weekly email that just outlines what all's going on and then connects the social people with a course we're launching or what we talked about in the podcast that needs to go in the email and kind of connects those dots.
Yeah. And do you meet with any of the individual people on your team like weekly or more consistently?
No, not any more consistently than that. It's not really super necessary. If there's questions, we talk a lot in Slack. So that helps.
Slack.
There's a lot of Slack channels going on. Yes.
Yeah. I've tried with the Slack. I haven't been able to do it, but I use Voxer with my team, but Slack, okay. I know a lot of people love Slack.
Yeah, I never would have done it. I'm a resistant to change type of person. Like, I've always done it this way. Why change it? But then a couple people on my team were like, we need to get into Slack. And now that it's all established and there's all these channels, I see how it's good. I just didn't want to learn something new.
I know. So give us your story in 5 minutes, like how you came to be this mom of 8 with this incredible platform on YouTube, the blog, the podcast. Just give us your whole story.
Well, it's been a slow progression over years of time. So I first started my blog about 9 years ago and I had 4 kids then and I was a stay-at-home mom. And up till then, I'd tried things like Etsy shops and other business ideas. And I didn't like that they couldn't be very passive. And so my goal was, I can do something where, maybe I could promote affiliate. I didn't really know what it would look like. I didn't know what ad networks were or anything like that. So I started just writing what we were doing. And then over time, this is a very abridged version because over lots of time, I kind of figured out, SEO and started just collecting knowledge through, at the time I went to a few conferences. I listened to podcasts. I didn't really take any courses, but just learned a lot of things by listening to a lot of people over the years. And then I added YouTube 2 years later. So that was 7 years ago now. Okay. And did more topical style videos then. Like today, I'm going to show you, how to wrap this wrap on your baby or how to pick the best cloth diapers and how to make a meatloaf. I don't know. But then slowly over time, how-to stuff, or 10 tips for Christmas, whatever, just tips and all that kind of stuff. And then over the years, I learned to sort of put those things together into more of a like I like to think of my whole thing as like a online magazine sort of. And so this is like the visual aspect where maybe we'll make a recipe, we'll decorate something, we'll organize something, and we'll call it Christmas Days at Home, something like that. Like I would slowly change to that type of content. I added the podcast in 2020. I added Instagram in, I think, 2016. So just over the years, I just kept adding on something. I didn't do it all at once. Like I didn't start blog, YouTube channel, podcast all in 1 year. After I felt like I had the groove with something, I understood how to do it, how to edit, how to put it all together. I started adding other things. And then, of course, adding to my team to maintain them all.
And you started the podcast, you said 2020, several years after starting YouTube. So why did you feel the need to also do a podcast? And you didn't really mention the podcast in regards to your own kind of what you do, your own schedule. How does a podcast
true. So the podcast I do spend an hour a week doing. So they organize the guests and the outlines and all of that. But I have to physically show up and do a podcast interview once a week. That's about an hour long. I don't really know why I had the podcast. I really just love diversification. So to this day, my podcast is by far the least profitable thing. I mean, monetarily versus like the time spent doing a blog makes zero sense. But I've always loved diversification. I mean, no matter how successful things might be right now with one certain platform, I love that if those fall apart, we could make it on the podcast. Or if, the blog fell apart, we can make it on YouTube. There's just a lot of different avenues. And I like keeping them all going strictly for that reason.
So let's dive a little bit more into the content itself. What is the type of impact that you're hoping to make with talking about your lifestyle?
So I started doing all of this stuff like baking bread from scratch and sourdough long before having a YouTube channel. So I always picture that a lot of my viewers are just people who are wanting to do that kind of stuff, but who are just a few years behind me on it. And I have had, like, I've gone to events in real life and I've met so many different viewers, and I've had people tell me, like, you taught me to cook. Like, my mom never taught me to cook. And so you completely taught me how to cook from scratch. There'll be people who are, maybe have already been at this a while, but maybe learned something new. But then there'll also be young wives and new moms who will tell me that it's made a big impact. So I don't know that I even necessarily thought about the impact when I started it. It was kind of just like, I've learned all these things. Like I learned how to sew, how to bake bread, and now I'm going to share it with the world. And I didn't really even picture that it would make such an impact, to be completely honest, but it seems that it has.
What has surprised you about the impact that you've made?
A lot of what I do, I've been doing so long that it becomes second nature. And so there are certain things that I think aren't a very big deal, but will actually make a big impact to somebody. Like, for example, I have 8 kids. I birthed 6 of them at home, and I share my birth stories. And I've had so many women come up to me and say, like, I had a great birth. Like, I was able to relax through it, and it was because of your birth stories. I'm like, wow, really? Like, that's the reason, or that they'll attribute to it. And so, that always surprises me. Like, I think people are making sourdough bread, which a lot of them are, but then there'll be like that kind of thing, like the birth stories made the biggest impact. I'm like, oh, I only share those once every 2 years.
Well, the birth, I feel like on YouTube, birth stories do really well.
Yeah. And I don't show like the actual birth. Like I never do that, but I just kind of sit there with the baby and tell about how how it unfolded and how, like, what I used to cope and relax. And that's made a big impact, apparently.
Are there certain things that you talk about with your YouTube channel that you find performs better than others?
I mean, like, obviously big life changes do. Not, I got accused of course, like you do, being a YouTuber, like, that's why YouTubers always move and change things. I'm like, actually, I would have rather not made this announcement. But then, like, things like, too, like having new babies, things like that. And people are like, you just have kids. I'm like, yes, I literally have children that I have to raise for the next 18 years for a quick 1 million views on YouTube. Could you imagine? People say that kind of stuff.
Like the first month of that child's life,
Right. It's not going to cover it. Trust me.
Yeah. I've seen that too. I've seen that people like, people just want to have more babies so they can have more content.
Yes. And I mean, it makes me shy away from sharing certain kinds of content because I don't want to be accused of that. Like, it makes me literally not want to make it. Like, with my last baby, I didn't share about the pregnancy, like an announcement. It was just like in one of my regular vlogs, I was like, oh yeah, and I'm pregnant. Like, I just didn't want to make a deal of it, but I knew obviously like I was going to have to say something eventually.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I hate those kind of accusations. But of course, those big life changes get a lot of views if you do like an official announcement, whatever. But like in normal life, typically like a hot take on like motherhood, which I never know how much I want to do those kind of things, but like, instead of just being like day in the life, but saying like something like this one thing changed everything, like some kind of hot take, those always do well. But then I'm always like, do I really want to take a hot take? You know, like,
well, you get, I mean, what kind of negativity or like backlash have you gotten from your content, if at all?
I get negativity, and honestly, it bothers me too much. What I wish it wouldn't do is shape the kind of content I make, because I can share better and help the people that want and need to be helped by my content if I'm not thinking about the stupid Redditor people. Like, honestly, if I am not thinking about them, I'm a better content creator. But unfortunately, it's always in the back of my head. Like, I literally, like, after an interview like this, I'll sit down and I'll be like, oh, if I said this, like, they're going to hate that. Like, it bothers me too much. The backlash. I wouldn't say there's like, it's terrible or anything, but just with every niche, there's like a certain percent of people who just like cannot stand to see somebody happy. And so they have to come up with some reason why it's the way it is, you know?
So how do you handle that for doing this for 9 years?
Well, I try to just not look at comments hardly at all, but you know, there's times where I do. But even when I don't, I just know that there's certain people who will hate you for it. And honestly, I just try not to worry about it. I try to think like, I try to picture the people who will be helped by the content and think about them. Like, if I was talking to a couple of my friends and sharing like how I'm caring for my family this week, I wouldn't worry about like my friends who actually like me. I would not worry about that. And so I try to picture them instead of the negative people.
Yeah, that's the best way to do it. Because the negativity can, like you said, if you focus on that, it really screws up the content itself. Because then it impacts what you want to share and what you want to do. And you can't be as vulnerable and authentic as you need to do to stay successful.
Yeah. Yep. And I think that's the goal of these people. Like, they need people to not be successful to feel good about themselves. So like, that's what they're trying to do, is to get you to stop. So I don't know why one would, do that.
Yeah. And you seem, when it comes to your content and your YouTube channel, you seem, well, I don't know, just from talking to you, you seem relaxed about almost the growth. I'm sure you want the growth, but you don't seem like you get caught up in it. Maybe you do, but what are your growth goals like with the YouTube channel? Do you have those type of goals, or is it more like, my goal is just to get a video out every week? And
my goal is always to get a video out per week. I haven't worried much about growth, but I will say I've never not grown. So I don't know what it would be like to stagnate. Like I've never had like viral growth really. I mean, there's been like little bumps here and there with certain content, but like, people will go from 0 to 500 in a month. I've never had that, but I've consistently always grown, like always gone up 5,000-ish a month or something like that.
And why do you think that is?
I don't know. I think that I love crafting a YouTube video. So I think I've consistently improved I've definitely improved. Like, if I look back at old videos, that's for sure. But I've enjoyed improving it. Like, one of the tasks I have today, it's a Monday, is to plan out like the next couple of weeks of content. And that's a fun thing for me to do. Like, that's actually like an enjoyable piece of work for me. And so I think enjoying it means that I, get better and, for the most part, continue to grow. But I don't know like what it would be like if it completely, because I've had friends that it's stagnated, and sometimes you can't tell the reason. Like, sometimes there's no like obvious reason, like, oh, you did this. Sometimes it's not that. And so if that should happen, how will I handle it? I'm not sure.
Yeah. And then same thing with your blog.
Yeah, that too has always grown. So again, I haven't had to deal with that, but I'm sure that it would bother me a lot if my blog stopped growing.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure. And how do you handle being your own privacy and the privacy of your children being in such a public platform?
So I have done very poorly at times. Like my first house that I started this business in, it was on Boone Street. And so we called it
Farmhouse on Boone.
Yeah. Yes. And not only that, that'd be one thing. So that kind of narrows down like how many Boone Streets are there in the world or in the US, in the Missouri, God. In Missouri. People know I live in Missouri too.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, and then on top of that, some of my best content I shared was the exterior of my home with the address on it. I know. So like, obviously like the full address, all you had to figure out now was the town. But if you search that address on Boone Street, there was only one.
Oh my God.
So thankfully I moved from there, but then I continued to mess up at my last house by sharing the exterior, by showing like, it's really tricky because again, the kind of content I can make when I have full freedom to show everything is so much better, but I'm definitely entering into my, privacy era, if you will, because like we moved into this house and I did not share any of the exterior. I don't plan to. And then with our farm, like I'm definitely being way more private about stuff. Like I also, in my last house, I showed like all the kids' rooms and now I'm like not showing the kids' rooms. And I'll let kids like pop into my content, but it's like definitely not about them. And I try not to show like very much of them at all. So I'm just becoming more private, mostly because as I've grown, like I get recognized out and about a lot. And
really?
Yeah.
Like on vacation or just in your own neighborhood?
Everywhere.
Wow.
Everywhere.
Wow.
I mean, except New York City. That's really interesting. Not New York City.
Well, not many of them are homesteading, so.
I know. It's so funny because like that's such a densely populated place and like nobody came up to me, but like I go any small town and somebody comes up to me. So it's hilarious. So yeah, I'm trying to, it's hard because it makes creating content a lot harder when you're trying to like leave out a lot of details. And it's a bummer too, because like I want to share like my house that we got in town. It's so pretty and I want to show the exterior, but I'm not going to do it. So it's hard.
Has anything happened by being so public with where you live?
It hasn't. I will say only thing that's happened that spooked me was I've gotten mail from a gossip site. Now, that's not that big of a deal because it's not like they came to my house, but I didn't like it. I did not like it.
Yeah. It feels like an invasion of privacy.
Very much so, because they made sure to put on the back like the name of the gossip site. And that whole part of the internet just, I hate.
Yeah, I know.
Hate it. It's so dang ugly.
I agree. The guru gossip and all that. It is. And
it's ugly. Like if you're involved in it, it's ugly. Just get off. It's very ugly. Even being a fly on the wall with it is still like, don't do it. But it definitely makes me hesitant. I'll tell you that much. It makes me pull way back. I don't want to give them anything to chew on.
So you do think about it when you're creating content?
Too much. Maybe not, but yeah, I think about it a lot.
Really? Because have you been like victim of just a bunch of crap going on there?
I don't even look, but there's things that are fully false. Like they're literal lies. And that's the stuff that gets me because I'm like, that's a lie. That's not true.
And people don't know. And people don't know. And it's funny because I work with a lot of creators, right? So I actually really know what's going on with them. Like I know the people I work with, the channel that I produce, like I know the creators very well, like inside and out. That's actually part of my job, right? Because I can take them and knowing them and pull that and help. Okay, let's do this video. Let's do this video. Why don't you talk about this? No, I don't want to. Okay, we'll talk about that. Whatever, right? So I know them really well. And so sometimes and I don't know, sometimes you just randomly end up on these sites. You're Googling something, you research something, you're doing something, and you're like, oh, what are they saying about this person? And then you're like, that take is so wrong. Like these people,
not true.
Like people are kind of like, oh yeah, this is true and this is true. And people are talking like they know this about this person, this about that person. I'm like,
and you know them.
I was like, wow, that's actually a pretty decent take. Like, it's not totally true, but it's kind of close. And most of the time you're like, that is just not true. Like, that is not true at all. Like, I know the actual truth. And where are these people getting this? So, myself, I see it from so many different people. Granted, like a lot of the gurus that are being highlighted in there, like they only know their own story, right? But like, I know a lot of people very well. And I see that stuff and I'm like, that's not true. Like, it's just one little nugget and then they create a whole story around it.
Yeah, right.
People get off on it somehow. I don't know.
Yeah. It's the hard part about being a creator, because some people let it roll off their back and they, like, I've met people who think it's funny. Like, they're like, that's hilarious. They said this, it's not even true. And then they just go about their day, and I'm like, see, I don't like that fake information being out there. So, it's, I think some people can deal with it better than others.
Why do you think it bothers you so much?
I don't know. I think I'm a people pleaser. I don't know why. And it's not like, I guess, no, it does bother me a lot. Yeah, it bothers me. I don't know why, but it does. Yeah. I think because it's lies, like I always feel the need to like clear whether something is true or not. And I think the blatant lies are hard to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything that's ever made you just like almost give up? Or
no, nah, because it helps us reach our family's goals, so it doesn't bother me that bad.
Yeah,
it doesn't. It just is something that I think about a lot when I'm creating content. Is like, I don't want to give those people much, like I pull back a lot because of, like, I would used to share like more like candidly, and I still kind of do somewhat on my podcast. But like, I censor myself big time. Like, there's things that I'd love to talk about. I won't do it.
Wow. That's so interesting. How do you plan each of your videos? And do you upload, how often do you upload? Is it just once a week? Or
once a week, yeah.
Yeah. So give us your entire kind of production of your videos from ideation to once it's uploaded. Like, and where you're involved in that versus your team.
Yeah. So the YouTube portion, other than like, I have a podcast YouTube channel, but we're not really talking about that. We're talking about my main YouTube channel where I post once a week. So it ebbs and flows. So like, we just moved into a new house. And so like the last several videos were very straightforward. It was like, we are moving, the last tour of our old house, the new tour of our new house. But typically I will sit down. I don't have like a hard and fast rule. Like once a month, I sit down and plan 4 videos, but that is typically how it happens. I'll have one like night of creativity in the bathtub where I'm like writing out all the videos I have coming up. And another thing I do, which is different maybe, is I have every video sponsored. I don't know if that's controversial or not, but to me, the amount of time that goes into a video, I like to carry a sponsor. Like, as you well know, Google AdSense isn't that profitable. Yeah. I mean, it's fine. It's great. I'm very thankful for it. But anyway, so I will write down like each sponsor basically, and then I'll come up with the title and the thumbnail, and then write a list of things that I ideally would like to fit into that puzzle. So like if it's called, we're going into January, probably some kind of like organize your house content. And then I might make like a few recipes to show how I have organized our meal plan, or maybe I will organize the laundry room. I'll make like a little list of things that I could possibly do. And then once I have that written out, like title, thumbnail, the 4 or 5 things that I plan to do in the video, I'm good for that to just sit like that until the week that I'm shooting it. And then usually I'll shoot things like a little bit Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then edit it Thursday, submit to the brand Friday, and it will go live the following Friday. So I give a brand, usually, sometimes I don't get it until Monday, but I like to give a brand a full week for any edits. And the brands I work with, the thing is, I work with the same brands over and over. I have for years. And so typically there's like no edits at all. But, sometimes there's a little like change this link, just little things, nothing big. And I like to give them plenty of time so that my content can go live the following Friday really easily. So That's pretty much it. And sometimes I'm not that far ahead. I don't have 4 videos planned out all at once. And that's actually where I am right now. But in my normal organized life, that's typically how it is. I have like the next 4 videos loosely planned, and then I can execute them over 1 week time.
Are you only shooting 1 video at a time, or like one video a week?
Yeah, I try to get ahead. Sometimes, like during the move, I got myself really far ahead just for purposes of life not getting too insane. But usually what is the easiest thing for me to do is to just shoot a video throughout a week, edit it, submit it. That's like a workflow that works very easily for me. Getting ahead is very difficult. So if we're going on a trip or something where I know I won't be able to shoot, I do have to get ahead, and it's hard to shoot double time. But since I'm not doing like a sit down studio style video, it's just a lot different and it's harder to get ahead. Now, if I do need to get ahead, typically what I'll do is I'll shoot 1 day in the life type of video. And then I'll also shoot like a what we're eating in a week video. And I can accomplish those 2 videos in the same week because I will film like everything we're making for dinner in 1 week. And then 1 whole day, I'll film everything I'm doing. That's a good way for me to get all the content I need for 2 videos. Those are always my go-to videos if we have to get ahead somehow. Now, I'm not calling it like my day in the life. Like I'm calling it something else, but that's just how I'm shooting it so I can actually get it all done.
What would you be calling those videos?
Oh, it just depends. Sometimes it kind of depends on like, there's like different angles to take. So, trying to think like whenever we had the dairy cow, I would call it like Mom of 8 Homestead, I don't know, day. Or if it's Christmas time, I would call it like Christmas time homemaking, or I might even call it something that has nothing to do with day in the life at all, like decluttering in January. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like it's just if I film everything I'm doing in a day, that gives me enough content to talk about whatever topic I'm trying to cover as a voiceover with that content.
Yeah, but it makes sense for you in your own head and the planning. You're like, okay, it's a day in the life. Like,
exactly. Just shoot whatever I'm doing that day. Those are always like a day in the life. Like shooting a day in the life is always I don't know what I'm doing this week. I need to get ahead. So I don't even know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to shoot whatever I'm doing that day. Those are my when I have it planned properly, but it still works out and comes together in editing pretty well.
Because your life is so different. It's so unique. It's very interesting. And so I think no matter what, you probably don't have to plan a day in your life, because no matter what you're doing, there's just something there that you can probably turn into an interesting video.
I don't know if maybe everybody thinks that about other people, because I'm like, I don't know, I'm just doing laundry and cleaning and cooking. But if it's not super interesting what I'm doing, I try to make it a little more interesting with the voiceover. Like maybe I'll treat it more like a podcast and I'll answer some of my viewers like top questions. And so I'll film just what I'm doing that day, but then I'll talk about something that people really want to hear about, or they like, for example, I did a video that was I put unhappy on the thumbnail and put like why homemakers aren't content or something like that. And so that, I don't remember if that was a day in life. That's just an example of like a time when you could film whatever you're doing all day and then talk about a topic like that, which has nothing to do with the footage, and treat it more like a podcast.
Yeah. And then you just do a voiceover.
That's what I typically always do. I mean, that's how I do it. Yeah. I hardly ever face a camera talk ever. Now I recently did for the first time in years, because we were moving. And it was like
I saw that video.
A sit down thing. But normally it's never that.
It's always, and that's probably makes it easier for you, I would imagine. Or do you feel that it's because the audience likes it, or is it a combination of both?
Honestly, it's just what's easiest for me, because there's always children, there's always, a lot going on. So it just is way too hard to like clear the house and talk to the camera. And I'll even include audio of what's actually going on in the house. I'll just turn it way down to where it almost sounds charming. Like I was listening to one of my videos today. I was kind of proof watching it before putting it up. And there's like my son's even whining in the background, but it's so quiet. And then I put like Christmas music. I'm like, it's kind of charming. Just, there's a little 3-year-old whining in the background, and it's okay.
Seeing that in your videos, and I like that. To me, you're creating an environment and an ambiance that you feel like you're kind of there with you.
Yeah. And sometimes it's like too much and I completely silence it, especially if I'm like talking to my teenagers or my husband, we silence that. Mm-hmm. But if it's just like some little kids around, I think the audio is kind of nice.
Yeah, I like it. So how many hours do you spend on each video from start to finish? Like you personally, not necessarily like your team, but you personally.
Yeah. And I do my videos 100% myself. So
you do the upload, you do the thumbnail, you do
everything.
All of that. Okay, so YouTube myself. Is your full committed self.
It's what I do. YouTube is all that I do. It's funny because again, it's not like, it's not the biggest part, but it's what I do. So I would say, golly, like even thinking about like planning the video, the thumbnail, it's hard because I don't know if I should count where like I'm making dinner, but I have the camera set up. You know what I mean? But if we count all of that, I would say probably like 7 or 8. Let's just say 8 hours. Let's say 8 hours. That sounds good. Yeah.
So essentially, how many hours a week or a day are you working versus how many hours are you with the kids and,
Well, so the way we have it right now, and we've had it actually like this for years, I work 12 hours a week. So I do 3 hours every afternoon from Monday through Thursday. And then I don't do anything Friday, Saturday, Sunday with the business, of course. I spend tons of time doing lots of things. So that's what we do. Like today we shifted a little bit earlier and doing 12 to 3, but normally it's 1 to 4. And the littles will nap most of that. My husband is home. Like he's been home for 6 years. So that's the thing that I have that I know that people don't. And I didn't in the beginning, of course, but having that now, that means that I can say I'm going up to the office for 3 hours. And that's what I do. Now I do have to, like, I still nurse my son. He's 1. I still, like, as soon as we get off this podcast, I'm going to go get him, nurse him, put him to sleep, and he'll probably sleep the rest of the work hour today. But yeah, that's how much time.
Wow. 12 hours a week on your entire business. Everything.
Yeah. Now, of course, there'll be times when we're like we were at a trampoline park with the kids last Friday, and I answered a couple messages and emails from my team, but like the time that I'm like working, yeah, it truly is. It was definitely way, way, way more in the beginning. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking like, how on earth is that possible? It's just been so many years of building and growing, and then having a budget to hire a team, having a bigger budget to hire a like better team, more qualified team. Otherwise I could never, like, it would be impossible to spend this amount of time on my business.
Yeah. Was there a moment where you're like, oh, wow, this business is growing. I'm now working so hard. I can't be with my kids or do whatever I want to do. Like something needs to happen. Was there a point like of pressure, throughout this business where you said, I have to make a change? Or did you have a team from the get-go? Or what happened in that progression?
Yeah. So the early years were like late nights, nap times, lots of like early mornings, things like that. So it was definitely harder because I didn't have the budget to hire a team until the business was making money. But I will say that I was always pretty comfortable with putting money back into the business from the very beginning, like not really worrying about taking a huge profit. So my origin story with this whole thing is I started with an Etsy shop, and then I thought, oh, I will start a blog and a social media to like promote that Etsy shop. So I ran the blog and the sewing simultaneously for a while and realized I either have to quit one or the other. There's no chance I can stand in the sewing room and sew pillows and ship them and write a blog. So thank the Lord, instead of quitting the blog, I brought in some local homeschooled teenagers and taught them how to sew and ship the pillows. And I focus more on the blog. So I've been doing this whole thing where I start something, spin it off with a team, start another thing, spin it off with a team from the very beginning. I mean, back then, I really didn't have the budget. Like everything that I was making from that sewing was just going back into hiring people. But looking back, like I'm so glad I didn't just, because when you're first beginning something like a blog or a YouTube channel, you don't make money right away. Whereas like when you sew and sell something, you make $10 or whatever it is, on every single thing right away. It's like a easy profit thing. So I'm really glad I didn't like grab that easy money and then like quit the things that are now ridiculous pay for the amount of time invested.
Yeah. So I'm assuming your husband was financially supporting you guys while you were doing that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. He worked full time. So 2 years in to starting my business, he quit his job. But yeah, those first 2 years, that we always say the reason that this all happened for us was we had priorities from the very beginning that allowed for this. Like we lived extremely cheaply, so that I could stay home and homeschool and all of that kind of stuff, and didn't take on debt. And so when I had that flexibility because we just didn't need the money. So yeah, if you need it, that's a longer game to have to try to play.
And I always tell people, if you have another source of income, don't quit that before, quitting to do YouTube. Like it's very difficult to do a social platform without having some other source of income because, for me, it's like I invested money I started off with the podcast and like I wasn't making any money, but I invested money into it with an editor and like a team right away. Right. But I was working a full-time job and my husband's working too. And like, I was able to do that. Cause some people are like, they want to quit and all that, but the best time to start a social platform is as a side hustle, or like in your case, you have somebody else that's financially supporting. You're still kind of working full-time as a mom. So it's still a side hustle. But you can't really say, I'm going to wake up today and my job is going to be a blogger and I'm going to make money from that.
No,
it has to start as a side hustle.
Yes, absolutely.
So can you break down your individual revenue streams and like what percentage that is of your total business? So you had mentioned earlier, which I think is interesting, that the blog is actually your highest revenue stream, more so than YouTube. And then I know you have courses and then you have the podcast. So how does that all fit in monetarily?
Man, it's tricky. I would say courses is probably about 10%. The blog, you're making me do some quick math here.
Sorry.
I would say is at least 70%.
Okay.
And YouTube, let's say 20. And now I didn't throw in like, Amazon affiliates, what else? Podcast, stuff like that. But that's a pretty rough breakdown. And when I say YouTube, I'm including like the sponsors with the AdSense, with all of that.
And then what about your course sales?
Yeah. So I would say that's about 10%. Yeah. I'd say
Did you say
the
that
course
already?
is about, no worries. Yeah. About 10%.
So you said 10% the course, 70% the blog, and then
is that 20... right? Yeah.
That's right. And then 20% YouTube.
Yeah, that's pretty rough estimate there, but yes, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So how are you making money on the blog? Is it from selling things, affiliate? Is it from sponsors, advertisers?
So I'm on an ad network where, so just the ads that pop up, that's the only way I make money on a blog. I don't take any sponsors over there anymore. I do make some affiliate income from there. But when I say like the income, it's strictly from my ad network. It's kind of like Google AdSense, except they pay way more.
I would say, sounds like they pay way more.
RPMs are way better. Like you're an expert. What's like a Google RPM or like an AdSense RPM on a YouTube video?
YouTube? Yeah, it's anywhere on average. It depends on the niche. It depends on where the viewers are located. But on average, it's like can be anywhere from, I usually see $5 to $12 is kind of average. And then higher than that, and we're talking RPM, not CPM. So RPM is what you as a creator takes home. And then depending on the niche, some niches like making money and, real estate and sometimes even shopping related channels like homes that can get a higher RPM. And that could be upwards of like $12, $15 all the way up to like 20 or 30, but that's more rare.
So like a blog RPM is around 30 plus.
Wow.
So yeah.
A lot more. It's consistent throughout the whole year because it also fluctuates on YouTube.
Yeah. So I was just looking at like my RPM for like, right now, which is Q4. I don't know when this is going live, but
yeah, it'll go live in the next month or so. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So Q1's a whole different story.
Yes, it's way worse on YouTube.
And blogging. Absolutely way worse. So like $32, $32 in November, averaging around the same in December. So it fluctuates like YouTube, but it's consistently like way higher per visitor to the blog.
Wow.
Than YouTube. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know why. You would think like a video ad with like a commercial would pay way more. I honestly don't know the reason for it. If somehow some company could like ever take, because like back in the day, people put Google ads on their blog, but then when ad companies took over and like placed ads and like managed the whole thing, it went way up. So this is probably a dumb question. People are probably like, do you not know that much about this? But like, could that ever happen with YouTube? If so, then that'd be really great.
I don't know. Because I don't know enough about the way it works in blogging in Google. And it's funny because you'll hear people say like, oh, blogging's dead. Nobody's blogging anymore.
No.
That's not the case, huh? People are still blogging and making lots of money on blogging.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
you teach on that. You teach a course on that.
I do teach a course on it. And the thing with blogging, I have found that people have faster success on YouTube. So they can get their channel noticed and monetized faster. Whereas with the blog, I find it to be more of a long game. Like probably, at least in today's world, with the way everything is, like you might not see success as quickly. So it's definitely not dead. And you have to, do a lot of different ways like Pinterest and Google and even social platforms to get the traffic. And so I'm not saying I necessarily, recommend everybody quit YouTube and start a blog. Absolutely not. I just am saying there's still potential there. But yeah, YouTube, so much potential there as well. And I love YouTube. Yeah.
But you started your blog first. And so
yes. Yeah.
Do you think that, well, you probably see it because you teach a course on it, but like, are there people starting blogs now and being successful? Because in my mind, I always thought really to be successful as a blogger, you need to have had started your blog years ago. Like, good luck now.
There are definitely people still starting. And then another cool thing is the ad networks are now accepting people at a lower threshold. So it used to be, you had to have a certain size blog to get onto one of the big ad networks, but they've opened it up to smaller bloggers and people are getting monetized a lot sooner and driving traffic a lot of different ways, like not just Google SEO, but like Pinterest and social platforms and even YouTubers starting a blog to like, say you make recipes on your channel, like you do like a day in the life and you make a recipe, hosting that over on your own blog where people can print out a recipe and maybe get a pop-up for an email list. I think I really like the idea of having a broad business with a lot of different facets to it so that it's not just one thing. Yeah.
Because that's even getting my mind's turning. I'm like, what about starting a blog where, you take your YouTube content, even someone like for me, for example, right? Like I teach about YouTube and how to grow YouTube and all that. It's like taking maybe my videos and then turning them into written content or just a blog post, but still directing people to the video. Is that what you do? Is you still direct people to your video, or is it like its own entity and you don't even mention your video?
It's definitely its own entity. If anything, I try to get people to go from my YouTube over to my blog.
Because you're making more money.
Yeah, and to get them used to going there and making it their source for recipes. So I'm constantly talking about my blog on YouTube, and I've been doing that for many years, which really helps a lot. Because one of my top pages on my blog is actually my homepage, which is really rare for bloggers. But I think it's rare. Maybe it's not. But I think that people don't usually get quite as much traffic to their homepage as me. But I think it's because of my YouTube. I constantly say, go over to farmhouseonboone.com and, search for your recipes there. Like this is, I'm trying to get people used to going there and printing out their recipes. The thing about it, like when you said blogging is dead, the old way of blogging is way dead. Like where people shared like their life and their top 10 favorite this or that. That kind of content is for Instagram, is for YouTube, is for TikTok. So I think people just have to shift their brains about what a blog is, because people are like, well, I don't read blogs. And I'm like, well, did you ever Google a recipe and go read the recipe? Then you do read blogs. It's just not the same type of stuff anymore. Like that kind of content that we used to think of bloggers is better suited for podcasts, YouTube, Instagram, not really written.
I think the only time I ever read blogs is for recipes.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing. It also really helps to be a food blogger. Somebody told me that years ago. I was at a blog thing and they were like, well, if you want to make money, you have to have a food blog. And I was like, oh, did not know that.
So everyone who's doing recipes on YouTube, it's almost like they are missing out big time if they're not creating a blog. If you have a recipe channel.
And there are other niches definitely making it on blogging. Like don't let me say that there's not, because there are. Like I have lots of like home decor blogger friends, and people will Google search what's the best white paint color for trim, and that some blogger pops up for that. Like or like just all kinds of things you could think of to Google. So not every niche is best suited for a blog, but there are several that are.
With your blog, you've had it for 9 years. Isn't there something about being on YouTube for a long
time? Absolutely. Definitely. So there's something called domain authority. People call it DA. I mean, it's not a thing that like Google makes up. So I don't know how much stock one puts in it, but there are several different apps and websites that kind of can estimate your DA. And the longer a domain is around, the more authority it has. So that's, that's something that like the longevity of having a blog where you've posted consistently and people give you a lot of reviews. Oh yeah, that totally helps. 100%.
Yeah. God, it's so fascinating. And because you're still doing sponsors on YouTube. So you're doing, there's AdSense, you have a large channel, but it's so fascinating to see like that huge opportunity that is blogging.
Yeah. That's I'm thankful I never quit it, because there's been a lot of shiny things over the years, like Instagram and even YouTube. I mean, I do YouTube, but I don't, I only do one video a week. Like I don't spend, 2
or 3 videos
all
a
my
week.
waking hours doing it either.
Yeah. Wow. That's fascinating. Is there anything that you're glad that you didn't do, that you almost did?
Man, I would say, like quitting everything and doing Instagram. I was so tempted to do that
Why?
Well, back in like 2016, like I got an Instagram in May of 2016 and I was like, oh, like this is what you do now. Like people don't do blogs or don't do, I didn't like, I hadn't started YouTube, but I was about to.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. I'm curious about your course, because I'm a course creator and, in that whole world. Are you actively involved in the course, or is it a just done for you type thing where you've written it, it's done, and that's it? Or are you involved in a Facebook group or with coaching or anything like that?
So yeah, I don't do any coaching, and I've had people ask me about coaching, but I don't feel like that would fit in very well with my life. I feel like it would be a lot more of a demanding thing. I mean, I know you do it, and I'm sure it's a big time commitment.
It is a commitment. Yeah, it definitely is.
Yeah. So, I have Facebook groups where, I will, through certain periods of time, like go in there and be more active, and then times where I'm not in there a whole lot. But thankfully, the students are super active. I have 2 very active community, actually 4 really, for my 4 different courses. And sometimes my VAs will help get in there and answer questions and moderate and approve members, because, we'll have like private groups that only members can be involved in. But I never say that I'm going to be like super hands-on with people. It's more of the type of course that it's made and they can purchase it. But I also keep it at that price point. Like I've seen courses in the thousands. I have mine well below that, because I also don't want to have to answer, every question. I try to answer people's questions if they're really stuck, but I try to make it to where it doesn't require, like if you buy the course, don't be expecting a ton. And I feel like not expecting a ton. The courses have everything in them that, I just mean for me to personally.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I try to make sure that people know that like I won't be offering like a coaching with it. Yeah. And I try to price them accordingly. But so like the blog and YouTube courses, they have to be updated, which is, it's a more challenging thing. Whereas like my sourdough and my sewing courses, they just are what they are. And I don't have to ever go in and change anything, which is fabulous. But I have to like every 6 months do a major not a major overhaul. Like I don't have to completely redo them, but go in, watch through it, make sure there's nothing in there that's like totally outdated with them.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, I update my YouTube one all the time. But I'm in there with calls and stuff. So that's the thing is like, we're constantly, because you have to with social platforms, there's always things going on.
Yeah. And I feel like YouTube, a lot about the strategy hasn't changed a ton. You know, like, yes, there's shorts, but I still feel like people grow better with long form content.
Agreed.
You can, you know, there's searchable content. There's focusing heavily on the titles and thumbnails. I think with blogging, what happens is just like the actual place where you start the blogs, like they update things. And so then it looks different. It's basically the same thing, but it looks a little bit different, which can get really confusing. And so, you know, those are a lot more maintenance than my homemaking type of courses.
And you said you have a team that actually helps you do those updates.
Yeah, that's something more recent. So we are working right now on updating the business courses. And so I have someone on my team who is watching through them and then like checking them against the other websites. And we're finding things that need to be changed because the challenge with a course that needs to be updated is you have to actually watch through the entire thing to remember.
I just went through this with my team not that long ago. It was a whole overhaul. And it's a project.
Oh man. So did you have to redo all the videos or how did you like update it?
I did some that I completely redid. Some I added, like I created a lot of new content because like what you said with YouTube, like there's a lot of things that fundamentally they're always going to be the same. Right. So I've kind of created like additional videos that just are supplementary to the information that was already there.
Yes. That's what I did actually too.
Yeah. A few videos I reshot and I kept the original videos, but then I edited out like some of the videos, like if it's outdated information, I would edit out. But if there's still really good stuff in there, I kept it in and then add supplementary stuff in there. A few voiceovers I added in. So you kind of get creative.
Yes, I did the same thing. Mine are like all like, I don't want to say like patched in like they're bad, but like I'll watch through, I'll like delete a portion, say something else, like add B-roll and, you know, they're kind of like through the years. And part of me is like, at what point do I completely redo the course? Because I've been doing these kind of updates for a while. Yeah. So that's a challenge too. But with YouTube, like you said, I went in and I took some students' channels and did channel analysis to add to it. And I feel like that kind of helped make it more current to like, okay, you know, what do I see here that I feel like isn't currently working on YouTube?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's why it's nice to have that kind of something going on in our interaction with people, because then you can see with other people, like what they're going through. Okay. So you've kind of mentioned this, but I was wondering, like, you have all this help with your business, but do you have any help at all with your kids? But it sounds like that's your husband, that he's the one helping kids.
Yes. He's very hands-on with the kids and the homeschool. So I don't do like all the homeschool myself. That's something we fully tag team at this point. A lot of times in different seasons of life, I'll take the littles while he does homeschool with the older ones. That's kind of where we're at right now. So yeah, that's obviously a huge blessing. Like it's hard without a business thrown into it to have little kids and big kids and homeschool and all of that. Because during the morning portion of our day, I'm not even doing anything with the business, and still we're both all hands on deck with the kids and the homeschool.
Because as I say, with 8 kids, even 2 people, that's still a lot of work.
It's still, absolutely.
Like even without, even if it's just the 2 of you, that's insane.
It really is. I mean, it's not insane. I mean, it's chaotic. So like, yeah, I mean, it can be. Insane might be the right word. No, but like this morning it was really nice out. So I took the 4 littles and went on a walk while he did the others with homeschool. So like so we try to get school and lunch done, like everything done by 1. And then I do my work from 1 to 4 and then we do the evening stuff. So like he'll be outside with the kids or if it's really cold, which it's been like really nice lately, inside, but we together have to do like the laundry, the cleanup, the lunch or the breakfast and lunch prep and homeschool all morning. So from like 7 to 1, that's both of us. So there's not business happening in those hours. Just the normal household stuff and all the homeschool is like it. That's all we can get done. And then I come up here and do this for 3 hours, and then we're back into full blown tag team family mode.
And you don't have any help with like the laundry or cleaning or housework or anything like that? You guys do it all yourself?
Yeah, we do it all. I have hired house cleaners over the years, and it's actually really hard because, you know, they're in your house, and it'd be one thing if you like left and went to work, but you know, it's kind of weird. And plus I have older kids too. So it's like, you know what, we can tag team this thing. Like, I don't know. Sometimes there's just certain things that we should
like,
just
we
do.
can just do it.
Yeah. But like grocery delivery, we do all that stuff. Like we don't, there's like certain things I'm definitely willing to hire out for.
Yeah.
Lots of things. Yeah.
How old are your kids?
So my oldest is 16. So I have 16, 14, 11, 9, 7, 5, 3, 1. Yeah. So.
Gosh. Wow. That's amazing. That's so cool.
And having older kids, I think people always picture like you have 3 kids, and so they're probably young. So you're probably picturing like all like young kids. But of course, like I don't have to do much with my 16 and 14 and 11. Like they help, you know, like it's not all like little kids. It's still a lot of people in the house. You know, there's a lot going on, but it's not like, you know, I'm chasing around 8 toddlers. So that helps.
Yeah. I mean, I experienced that a little bit because I have my 1.5-year-old and I have a 7-year-old and an 8. Now I'm just turned 9-year-old. So the 2 are a little bit older. I do have a gap there. So the 2 are a little bit older. And it does help, but they're still an age where like, you know, it's still kind of little, you know, it's not like a,
like they're not like a genuine help. Like we're at this stage now. Yeah. Like, you know, we could, if we needed to like go do something today, say we had to like go to, I don't even know, like an accountant appointment or something, we could just leave, you know, like we have
babysitters. Yeah.
Yes.
We go when they're little like that.
No.
I mean, the kids have like after school activities because if they're homeschooled, because that takes up a lot of time too sometimes.
We don't have a whole lot of that, which really helps. We've really, I mean, we have some, like this week, we have 2 things, actually 3 nights this week. We have something that we have to like drive far to go to. So there's stuff, like there's definitely things, like we have plans with cousins and friends and stuff like that, but we don't have a whole lot of like sports and extracurricular activities. That's just what works best for our family.
Yeah, it's hard with 8. And are you planning on homeschooling all 8 of them through high school?
Yes, we are. So yeah, our oldest is technically a sophomore, and we plan to. So we'll be in this for literally ever. So.
Yes, that's amazing. So what drives you?
Well, I mean, I don't feel as driven. What's funny is like, I don't feel as driven these days as I was when I started all this. I was very, very motivated to work together as a family. So for my husband to come home from his job, that's not everybody's goals. People are like, I would go insane. I'm like, see, that's not everybody's goal. But for us, that really motivated us because we really wanted to get out to property, have a homestead, like have a simple life in the country. And I felt like we would need to be working together in our family business for that to happen. So I was really motivated by that. That like kept me up late at night, made me like reach all my goals. I am a self-motivated person. I've always been that way. That does come very naturally to me. So these days though, like I feel like we reached the goals we wanted. And so I'm not super driven, anymore. But
I mean, it's incredible to think how much your business has completely I don't say transformed because you're already on that path, but has really supported the type of life that you want to live.
Yes, it has. It has the potential to do that, you know, no matter what kind of goal. Everybody uses the platforms for very different goals, and it can be very flexible like that. Yeah.
Can you describe the moment that you realized that you made it?
I mean, this is probably funny because we had a goal for my husband to quit his job when we were making $4,000 a month. I want to say 4, maybe 5, but I think it was 4,000 a month, which, right? Like people, you know, this was back in 2018 when that actually was like money.
Yeah.
And so, Honestly, it's funny because our business has grown leaps and bounds, but that when he literally put in his 2-week notice at the job he'd been at for 14 years, I thought I made it. So I guess it was then, back in 2018.
So when your husband got to quit his job, basically.
Yeah, because that was the whole goal. And then within a year, we moved out to a homestead. And now we're in a transition where we're actually building out a much larger one. So we're in town, which is so strange, but it's all for the goal of building, like we bought a farm. So anyways, yes, like that's when I realized, okay, we can go anywhere, we can do whatever, like we're together and we can accomplish these goals together. So yeah, it was then.
And I can imagine though, like if your goal was 4,000 a month and you far surpassed that now, how has your business completely changed the lives of you and your kids then beyond what your original goal was?
So it definitely opened up things I never thought we could do. Like as far as the, like I thought, we wanted 5 acres and a little homestead, which honestly, that we'd be content with that. We truly would. Mm-hmm. Like to have a few chickens in the backyard, a dairy cow, we'd be content with that. But it opened up possibilities that I just never would have dreamed. However, I still think we would be doing the same things. Like people, will say like, oh, it must be nice to have, to be able to afford 8 kids. My husband worked for the city that we lived in, and we planned to have a large family then. And I know we would have had to be just, very creative with how we, like the kind of food that we made and bought, and with like our home furnishings, we probably would have to live in like a tiny, I don't know, but I know, or we just would have stayed in town in the house that we were in. But yeah. I know that we would have still pursued all of this regardless of the business and the income. So honestly, I think that yes, it allowed us to do things that we didn't think we could, but I still really think we would have been just as happy before, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah. So then where do you see this all going for you?
I don't even know. Every year, people like do their New Year's resolutions. And for the past, I'd say like 5 years, mine's always just been just to maintain what I've got, just to keep maintaining, like keep the one video going out per week, the one podcast, the 3 blog posts. Mm-hmm. That's been just to keep maintaining it. I don't know. Like I just never would have dreamed it would have grown to this level. And so I guess I can't even dream beyond it sometimes.
And then so it sounds like you bought this house, which sounds incredible. So
yeah, we bought a farm. So we actually are building a house.
You're building a house on the farm while you live in your current house right now.
Yeah. So we sold our little homestead on 7 acres, and we bought a house in town that will become a rental. And we are building a house on a farm. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. And that's all from the blogging, the platform, the YouTube.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yes, it wouldn't have been possible.
Wow.
For sure.
Well, Lisa, this has been such an interesting conversation. I think I love talking to so many different women and seeing how they're all making YouTube and blogging and all this work. And you shared a lot of things to me about blogging that I had no clue about. So thank you. Thank you for sharing all this amazing information. Where can people find you if they're not familiar with you, your blog, your YouTube?
Yeah. So on YouTube and Instagram and Facebook and all the places, it's Farmhouse on Boone. And then my blog is farmhouseonboone.com. And then I also have the podcast, Simple Farmhouse Life Podcast.
Well, thank you so much, Lisa.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.